The diner was small, with its neon sign flickering weakly against the cool evening sky, the kind of place where time seemed to move slower than the rest of the world. Inside, the smell of greasy burgers and burnt coffee filled the air, while an old jukebox hummed faintly in the corner. It should have been just another quiet night, but in a booth near the window sat a girl whose presence carried a fragile beauty, one that life had already scarred too soon. Her name was Lily, and she was disabled. The wheelchair beside her was not just a chair but a silent reminder of the accident that had stolen the use of her legs 2 years ago. She didn't talk much, her voice soft and uncertain, but her eyes, those wide, trembling eyes, spoke volumes of the battles she faced every day. That night, she had simply wanted a milkshake, something sweet to take her mind off the loneliness that clung to her chest. But cruelty has a way of finding the vulnerable. The door swung open and a group of local troublemakers barged in. 3 young men who had made a habit of picking on anyone weaker than themselves. They laughed too loud, shoved each other too hard, and fed on attention like starving wolves. The moment their eyes fell on Lily, their smirks grew sharper. They walked past her table once, twice, circling like vultures, tossing insults under their breath. Lily tried to ignore them, gripping her straw with shaky hands, pretending she didn't hear. But she did. Every word stabbed at her already fragile spirit. And then it happened. One of them leaned down, mocked her with words too cruel to repeat, and before anyone could stop him, his hand lashed across her cheek. The slap echoed louder than the jukebox. Her milkshake toppled over, spilling across the table and dripping onto her lap. The diner fell into silence. For a moment, everyone froze. A couple in the corner looked away, ashamed but afraid to get involved. The cook behind the counter clenched his jaw but said nothing. The bullies laughed, proud of their cruelty, and walked out like they had done something worth celebrating. And Lily, she sat there, face red from both the sting and humiliation, her hands trembling as tears slid silently down her cheeks. She didn't cry out, didn't scream, didn't beg for help. She just sat, trying desperately to hold herself together in a world that had already broken her too many times. Before I take you deeper into this story, let me pause right here. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us of the difference a single act of courage can make. An hour passed. The diner had returned to its dull rhythm, though the air still felt heavy with unspoken guilt. Lily hadn't left. She sat quietly, staring out the window, her milkshake glass still tipped on its side, as if mocking her with its finality. Her heart hurt more than her cheek. Why was the world so cruel? Why did people look the other way when they saw pain? She thought of her father, who worked late shifts to pay for her medical bills, and of her mother who used to tell her that kindness would always find her, even in the darkest places. But tonight, that promise felt like a lie. And then, the door opened again. This time, it wasn't the bullies. It was a different group entirely. 6 men walked in, their boots heavy against the tile floor, their leather jackets adorned with patches and scars of the road. They were bikers, rough-looking, intimidating, the kind of men who made others step aside without a word. The bell above the diner door jingled as they entered, and the entire atmosphere shifted. People glanced up nervously, unsure of what their presence meant. The bikers took a booth across the room, their deep voices rumbling as they ordered coffee and burgers, but it didn't take long before one of them noticed Lily. He saw the milkshake glass tipped over, the redness on her cheek, and the way her hands still shook as she tried to steady herself. Something in his chest tightened. He leaned toward his brothers, murmuring something that made them all turn to look at her. One by one, their expressions changed from casual to cold, their eyes narrowing with the kind of fury only men who knew pain themselves could carry. Finally, the largest of them stood up. His beard was gray, his hands scarred from years of fights and labor, but his steps were gentle as he approached her table. The entire diner went silent, watching. He crouched beside Lily, lowering himself so her frightened eyes met his. He didn't ask her what happened. He didn't need to. Her silence told him everything. He took a napkin, wiped the milkshake from her lap, and set the glass back upright on the table. Then, without a word, he motioned to the waitress for another milkshake. This one, he said, was them. For the first time that night, Lily's lips trembled into the smallest of smiles. It wasn't much, but it was something. The bikers didn't leave it at that. 2 of them walked out, and 15 minutes later they came back, with the bullies. They had found them bragging outside a gas station. The sight of the bikers dragging them back into the diner made everyone's heart pound. The troublemakers' cocky grins vanished when they saw Lily. When they realized the room was no longer theirs to dominate, the leader of the bikers stood behind them, his voice low but powerful as he made them apologize to her. At first, they muttered, ashamed and stubborn, but when his hand gripped the back of one of their necks, the apology grew louder, truer. The entire diner watched as the same bullies who had laughed at her now stood red-faced, mumbling words of regret. It wasn't enough to erase what they had done, but it was something Lily had never thought she would hear. Then came the moment that no one in that diner would forget. The biker leader turned to Lily and asked her if she wanted to forgive them. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stared at the boys, then at the men who had stood up for her. Slowly, with a shaky breath, she nodded. She forgave them, not for their sake, but for her own. The bullies were dismissed, leaving with shame burned into their faces, and the bikers stayed by her side the rest of the night. They ate with her, laughed with her, and reminded her that she was not invisible, that she mattered, that she was stronger than the pain others tried to inflict. When Lily's father arrived later to pick her up, he found her smiling, surrounded by 6 men who looked like outlaws but had hearts bigger than anyone he had ever met. He thanked them, voice breaking, as the leader simply put a hand on his shoulder and said, "She's family now. Anyone who touches her, touches us." And in that small diner under the flickering neon light, something changed forever. Lily no longer felt like a broken girl in a wheelchair. That night, she discovered that there are people in this world who will stand up, who will fight for kindness, who will remind you that you are never as alone as you think. As Lily was wheeled out, she turned back one last time to see the bikers raising their coffee mugs to her like a silent salute. She would carry that moment forever. It wasn't just about justice. It was about hope, about the promise that even in the darkest places, kindness can ride in when you least expect it. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe once again in the power of kindness and the courage to stand up for others, then please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps spread more stories that remind us of the goodness that still exists in this world.